So in my previous class, we have already completed the international trade. We have also completed the barrier trades. Mm, what is multinational corporations, dissolved portions? I have completed. What is joint venture? What is international trade policies? What is tariff impact on agriculture? Financial globalization, meaning of liberalizations. These all I have completed. Okay. What are the positive impact of liberalizations in India, and what are the negative impact of liberalization in India? It's all completed. Three points of each has been discussed over here. Now, the next one is foreign exchange rate mechanism. Okay. What are no, before that, there are the several sectors were affected by the outburst of the impact of liberalizations. Few economic reform were financial sector reform, tax reform or fiscal reform, foreign exchange reforms, external sector reform, industrial sector reform. So these are the sectors where it has been outbursted in the by the impact of liberalization. Now, next is what is foreign exchange rate mechanism? What is foreign exchange rate mechanism? Okay, ERM. In short, it is called ERM, or you can say exchange rate mechanism, whatever. So, an exchange rate mechanism is a device used to manage a country's currency exchange rate relative to other currencies. It is part of an economy's monetary policy and is put to use by central banks. Okay, this is called a mechanism, exchange rate mechanism. So, an exchange rate mechanism is a device. It is a device which is used to manage a country's currency, which is used to manage a country's currency. Okay, so this mechanism, you can say this foreign exchange mechanism or exchange rate mechanism, it's simply used. It is a device. Look at the word it has been used here, device, used to manage a country's you can say currency exchange rate. Okay, it is used to manage a country's currencies exchange rate. Okay, it is a part of an economy's monetary policy and is put to use by central bank. So it is a part of economy monetaries. Okay, so it's basically the exchange mechanism, or you can say foreign exchange rate mechanism. It control the monetary policies. Okay, and it is used by the central banks. Now, what are the key points of this exchange rate mechanism? Exchange rate mechanism, what are the key points? The first one is an exchange rate mechanism is a way that central bank can influence the relative price of its national currency in forex market. Okay, so an exchange rate mechanism is a way. It is simply a way that the central bank can influence the relative price of its national currency in forex market. Okay, the next one is exchange rate mechanism also allow the central bank to tweak a currency peg in order to normalize trade and other influences of inflation. Okay, so this exchange rate mechanism also allow the central bank to control the currency. Okay, tweak a currency peg means to control the currency in order to normalize, just normalize trade weak a currency peg, in order to normalize trade and influence of inflation. As you know, the inflation rate whenever it goes highs, then what this exchange rate mechanism used to do, they allow this exchange rate mechanism allows simply allow the central bank to weak a करेंसी, उसको थोड़ा सा करेंसीज को कमजोर कर दो. ठीक है, प्राइसेस को थोड़ा सा डिक्लाइन कर दो. प्राइसेस मतलब क्या, करेंसीज का जो वैल्यूज होता है उसको थोड़ा सा डिक्लाइन कर दो, तो ऑटोमेटिकली इन्फ्लेशन रेट जो रहेगा वो फिर स्टेबलाइज हो जाएगा। तो दीज आर द, यू कैन से, मैकेनिज्म। इकोनॉमी को चलाने के लिए ये सारा मैकेनिज्म जो होता है ये यूज होता है। The third one is, more broadly, exchange rate mechanism is used to keep exchange rates stable and minimize currency rate volatility in the market. Okay, so this mechanism is also used to keep exchange rates stable. जो भी foreign exchange rates होता है उसको stable करने के लिए this mechanism is very much useful. Okay, and it also minimize the currency rate violations in the market. Sometimes the high price rate, the currency rate of currency, or the rate of repo rate, this all going to increase. Okay, so this mechanism, with this use of mechanism, it control the volatility of the market. Okay, it control the volatility of the market. Volatility means, in the same way, you can say it means sometimes the prices or sometimes the rate of the currencies goes high. To minimize or to levelize those the balance, to make this balance, this exchange rate mechanism is very much useful. Okay, so these are the three important key points of foreign exchange rate mechanism. Then comes to the next, the basics of the exchange rate mechanism. Then comes to the next, the basics of the exchange rate mechanism. An exchange rate mechanism is not a new concept. The exchange rate mechanism is not a new concept. New concept. Historically, now most new currencies started as a fixed exchange mechanism that tracked gold or widely traded commodity. Okay, it is loosely based on fixed exchange rate margins, whereby exchange rate fluctuate within certain margins. So an exchange rate mechanism is not a new concept. It is simply not a new concept. It is not a new started in a fixed exchange mechanism that track gold or widely traded commodities. Okay, so if you look at the history, if you go to the basics of the exchange rate mechanism, it is not a new concept. In the, you can say, historically, this exchange rate mechanism is used to control the currencies in a fixed rate mechanism, and it also tracked the gold or widely traded commodities. Okay, so if you go with the historically, if you read the history, then we find the traces of this exchange rate mechanism, where it has been utilized there also. Okay, just to control the commodities, and also just to control the exchange rate. Suppose gold, or silver, okay, copper, these all are the metals. Okay, it has been used previously. जब कागज का नोट नहीं था तो इस तरह का एक्सचेंज होता था, गोल्ड, सिल्वर, कॉपर एंड ऑल, ब्रोंज, they used to exchange the commodities. तो ये mechanism जो था तब भी था. Historically, it has been proved that this foreign exchange mechanism or exchange rate mechanism is used in the historically, in histories also. Okay, now next है WTO and its impact on Indian business. WTO stand for World Trade Organizations. Okay, and its head office is in America. Okay, जो आप लोग 9/11 इंसिडेंट हुआ था, टेररिस्ट अटैक किया था 9/11, वर्ल्ड ट्रेड सेंटर्स या वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, उस तरह का ही ये एक भी है, वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड इट्स इम्पैक्ट ऑन इंडियन बिजनेस. ओके, now what is World Trade Organization? The World Trade Organization is a member driven with the decisions taken by general agreement among all members of the government, and its deal with the rules of trade between nations at a global or near global level. But there is more to it than it. Okay, but there is more to it than it. They deal with agriculture, textiles and clothing, banking, telecommunication, government purchases, industrial standards and product safety, food sanitizations, regulations, intellectual property, and much more. The World Trade Organization agreements are lengthy and complex because they are legal text covering a wide range of activities. सो वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन क्या है, इसका मेंबर कौन है, कैसे ये ऑपरेट होता है, कैसे काम होता है. सो बेसिकली वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज अ मेंबर driven is a member driven with decisions taken by general agreements. A lot of general agreements are being taken among the members of the governments, among the members of the governments, and it deals with the rules of trade between nations and a globe at a global or near global level. So it they create a rules and regulations of trade. Okay, they create a rules and regulations of trade between nations at a global or near global level. Okay, but there is more to it than that. Okay, they deal with agriculture. Okay, the World Trade Organizations deal with agriculture, textile, clothing, banking, telecommunication, government purchases, industrial standard and product safety, food sanitation regulations, intellectual property, and much more. So these are the, you can say, the members take the decisions on this particulars. More than that, on this particular, you can say, in you can say this particular things. Okay, now the World Trade Organization's agreements are lengthy and complex because they are legal text covering a wide range of activities. So, what does mean? The World Trade Agreements are very much lengthy and very complex because they are legal text. They are legal text and covering a wide range of activities. Lot of activities are there. Lot of policies are being there. Lot of, you can say, laws are being uh, you can say created. So that is why it is a really very little bit of complex, and also there is a wide range of activities. So this is a particular definition, you can say, or you can say it's simply given in a paragraph form of what is World Trade Organization. This is very important. Now there are another important features of World Trade Organization. Let us discuss. The World Trade Organization is an organization that intends to supervise and liberalize international trade. Okay, the World Trade Organization is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. Okay, so this is the only organizations that intend to supervise, okay, and liberalize international trade. These are the two important characteristic features of World Trade Organization: just to liberalize and just to supervise the international trade. And also, the World Trade Organization is the only global organization that deal with the rules of trade between the nations. Whenever there is a deals in between the nations, then this World Trade Organizations work there. Okay. And then another important characteristic features is at its heart are the WTO agreements negotiated and signed by the bulk of world trading nations and ratified in their parliaments. The goal is to help producers of goods and services, exporters and importers conduct their businesses. Okay, so at their heart are the World Trade Agreements negotiated and signed by the bulk of world trading on nations and ratified in their parliaments. Okay, so these are the process. Okay, how the plans and programs or how the laws are being executed. Okay, so these are negotiated, they are signed by the bulk of activities, bulk of producers of good and services exported and imported conducted their business. The country or the nations, the two nations where they start to do a trade business. They just starting to do a trade business. These World Trade Organizations conduct what you say conduct produce of goods and services and export and import of that two particular nations who are going to have world sorry who are going to have this business, okay, trade business. Now the World Trade Organization surpassed the World Trade Organization superseded and replaced by GATT, which was provisional multilateral agreement governing. Provisional multilateral governing. Okay, this World Trade Organization again been superseded and replaced the GATT, which was superseded and replaced the GATT. Okay, the GATT is General Agreement of Trade Business, something like that, and was the provisional multinational agreement of government. It is also a government multinational agreement. So the international trade from 1947 until 1995, the World Trade Organization has large membership in GATT. The number of members stand for 153. India is the one of the founding member of the WT. These all are the important. What is the difference between GATT and you can say a World Trade Organization? GATT stand for, I think, government agreement, traditional trust, or government agreements on trades. Okay, something like that. So this international trade from 1947 to 1995. Okay, the WTA has large membership in GATT. The number of members stand for 153 in World Trade Organizations, and India is one of the founding members of the WTO. So, and now India is one of the founding member of this of WTO. Now, WTO, the beginning history. You look at the history. The World Trade Organizations came into begin on January 1st, 1995. It was the outcome of a lengthy 1986-1984 Uruguay round of GATT negotiation. The WTO was essentially an extension of GATT. It extended GATT in two major ways. First, GATT became only one of the three major trade agreements and went into the WTO, or the other being the General Agreement on Trade and Services, GATS, and in the agreements on trade related aspect of intellectual property rights, TRIPS. So these are the extended part. Okay, now it's been completely to World Trade Organization, but before that, these are the, you can say, these are the much mm, these are the, you can say, extended part. Okay, these are the extended part related to World Trade Organization. When the World Trade Organization was not there, so before that, these are the process, these are the extended parts they run. Suppose GAT, gates, trims. Okay, so these are the things. Now is the second the WTO has put on much sounder institutional footing than GAT. With GAT, the support services that help maintain the agreement had come into being an ad hoc manner as needed arose. The WTO, by contrast, is fully fledged institutions. GATT was the least formally one of the agreement between contracting parties and had no independent exercise existence of its own, while the WTO is a corporate body recognized under international law. So there may be a questions going to come in the time of examination at the time of examination, that what is the difference between GATT or GATT and WTO. So very little, two or three points are there. With GATT, the support service had helped maintain the agreement, came into being an ad hoc manner and needed arouse. The WTO, by contrast, is fully fledged institutions. GATT also was, at least formally, only an agreement between the contracting parties and no independent existence of its own. Okay, while WTO is a corporate body recognized under international law. So these are the two or three important points where you can characterize or you can say differentiate between GATT and WTO. The next है the objective of WTO. What is the main objective of WTO? The primary aim of WTO is to implement the new World Trade Agreement. Okay, this is the primary motive of WTO. Now, to promote the multilateral trade, it's just to promote the multilateral trade, to promote free trade by abolishing tariff and non-tariff barriers. Okay, to promote free trade, by abolishing tariff and non-tariff barrier. This is the second point objective. Third है to enhance competitiveness among all trading partners so as to benefit consumers. Okay, the next one is to enhance competitiveness among all traditional partners, all trading partners, so as to benefit consumers, to increase the level of productions and productivity with a view to increase the level of employment in the world. This is the next one. To increase the level of productivity, and also the production, and also its view to increase the level of employment in the world. Okay, this is also the main objective of World Trade Organization. The next one is to expand and utilize world resource in the most optimum manner. Okay, तो to utilize the world का जितना भी resources है उसको optimum तरीके से utilize करना, ये भी वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक ऑब्जेक्टिव बना। वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक ऑब्जेक्टिव है या फिर कह सकते हैं पार्ट है। The next one is to improve the level of living for the global populations and speed up economic development of the member actions. Mm, to improve the level of living, to improve the level of living for the global population and speed up economic development of the member nations. This one is another important. And the last one na, to or behave to take special steps for the development of poorest nation. Some special tips have been taken for the development of the poorest nation, implementing function. So these are the objectives of the WTO. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, two, four, six, seven important objectives of WTO are there. Okay, the first one is to implement new world trade agreements, to promote free trade. Okay, to enhance competitiveness, to increase the level of productions, to increase the level of employment in the world, to expand and utilize the world resources in the most optimum manner, to improve the level of living for the global populations, to speed up the economic development of the members. Then the next one is to take special tips for the development of the poorest nations. So these are the seven important objectives of World Trade Organizations. Then comes to the next is functions of WTO. What are the functions of WTO? Functions क्या है WTO का? पहला है देखो implementing WTO agreements and administrating the international trade. This is one of the first functions of WTO. Implementing WTO agreements को implement करना and administrating the international trade. This is the first primary functions of WTO. Come next, cooperating with IMF, Indian Monetary Finance, and World Bank, okay, and its associates for establishing coordinations in global trade policy making. Okay, so this is the next important objective of you can say functions of WTO. Cooperating with international monetary finance or international monetary finance and World Bank and its associate for establishing coordination in global trade policy making. The next one is settling trade related disputes among members nations with the help of the disputes settlement. This one is the next, settling trade related dispute, okay, among member nations with the help of its dispute settlement, reviewing trade related economic policies of member countries with the help of its trade. Okay, so review trade related economic policies of member countries with the help of its trade policy review body, TPRB, providing technical assistance and guidance related to management of foreign trade and fiscal policy to its member nation. This one is another important functions of WTO, providing technical help, guidance, okay, and also related to the management for it, related to foreign trade business, related to the members nations. Next one is acting as a forum for trade liberalizations, acting as a forum, okay, acting as a forum for trade liberalization. The next one, India is one of the founder member of WTO. Who is the founder of the World Trade Organization? India is the founder member of World Trade Organization. So, World Trade Organization is an international trade organization having set of rules and principles mutually designed and agreed upon to promote international trade in general and reductions of tariff barriers and removal of important restrictions in particular. So, there is a beautiful definitions given here. The World Trade Organization is an international trade organization having set of rules and principles mutually designed and agreed upon to promote international trade in general and reductions of tariff barriers and removal of import restrictions in particular. So these are, you can say, the functions of World Trade Organizations. Next is organizational structure. What is the structure of this World Trade Organization? General Council, Council for Trade in Goods, Council for Intellectual Property Rights in Trade Council for Trade in Service, Dispute Settlement, Body GC, Trade Policies Review, Body Ministerial Conference, Development Trade Policy, Trade Related Intellectual Property, Right to Counsel, Council for Goods, Council for Services committed to BOP. Okay, so this is the organizational structure of World Trade Organization. I don't think these are the points I need to explain it to you. Is you need to means these are all form of the notes has been given over here, and the language is very simple. So it very clearly mentions what is the organizational structure of World Trade Organizations. Still, if you find any doubt, you can ask me. Next we proceed further. That is the role of World Trade Organization. What is the role of World Trade Organization? The main role of World Trade Organization is to help the trading industry to become smooth, fair, free, and predictable. Okay, predictable in the sense the company or the organizations. मैंने इससे पहले आप लोगों को शायद बिजनेस एनवायरनमेंट नहीं, इससे पहले ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल बिहेवियर में मैंने पढ़ाया था प्रेडिक्टेबल. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ प्रेडिक्टेबल? प्रेडिक्टेबल मीन्स द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस can see their future. They can set their future for next 5 years, that yes, for the next 5 years we will be in this position. Okay, so this is called predictable. So this is the main role of World Trade Organization, is just to help the trading industry, just to help to trading industry to run their business very smoothly, fairly, and freely, and also they can predictable. Okay, it was organized to become the administrator of multilateral trade and business agreement between its member nation. Okay, so multilateral trade business agreement between the member nation. It support all occurring negotiations for the latest agreement of World Trade Organization. Also tries to resolve trade dispute between member nations. Okay, another important, it was organized to become the administrator of multilateral trade. Okay, this World Trade Organization became the administrator of to those to whom to multilateral trade and business agreement between the nations. Okay, now it also support the latest agreement of uh, for trade. Okay, now World Trade Organization also tries to resolve trade dispute between member nations. So these are the role of World Trade Organization. नेक्स्ट देखो क्या लिखा है, multilateral agreements are also are always made between several countries in the past. Okay, so multilateral agreements are always made between several countries in the past. Because of this, such agreements become very difficult to negotiate. So इसके कारण क्या है, because of this such agreements became very difficult to negotiate, but are so powerful and influential once all the parties agree and sign the multilateral agreement. World Trade Organization act as an administrator. Okay, if there are unfair trade practices, or dumping, and there is complaint filed, the staff of World Trade Organization are expected to investigate and check if there are violations based on multilateral agreements. If there are the violations based on multilateral agreement. So these are the role of World Trade Organization. Now, what are the favorable impact of World Trade Organization? What are the favorable impact of World Trade Organization? Increase in export earning, growth in merchandise export. The world trade has both favorable and non-favorable impact on Indian economy. The growth in services exports. Okay, no, the growth in services export is the next point. So these are the two, this only two are the favorable impact of World Trade Organization. Number one is increase in export earning, and the next one is growth in merchandise export. Okay, now what are the growth in service export? The World Trade Organization introduced the GATS, General Agreement on Trade and Services, GATS, General Agreements on Trade and Services, that proved beneficial for countries like India. वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो है वो इंट्रोड्यूस किया था पहले गैट्स को, जनरल एग्रीमेंट ट्रेड इन सर्विसेज, दैट प्रूव beneficial for countries like India. India's service export increased from 5 billion US dollar 1995 to 102 billion US dollar in 2008 and 9 for 45% of Indian services. Agricultural export, a reduction of trade barriers, and domestic subsidizes rises the price of agricultural products in international market. India hopes to benefit from this in the form of higher export earning from agriculture. Next है textile and clothing. For textile and clothing, the phasing of MFA multi-fiber arrangements will help the developing countries like India to increase the export of textile and clothing as per direct investment. Okay, so textile and clothing के लिए multi fiber arrangements are there who look after the countries like India to increase the export of textile and clothing to other clothings exporting to other countries. Okay, the next है as per trims trade as per trims agreement, restrictions on foreign investments have been withdrawn by the member nations of the WTO. This has benefited developing countries by way of foreign direct investment, euro equities, and portfolio investment. In 2008 and 9, the net foreign direct investment in India was 35 billion US dollar. Unfavorable impact. Okay. So next है what is TRIP? TRIP का full form है trade excuse me trade related aspect of intellectual property. TRIP का full form है trade related aspect of intellectual property. Now what is this? Protection of intellectual property right has been of the major concerns of the WTO. As a member of WTO, India has to comply with the TRIP standards. However, the agreements on TRIP goes against the Indian Patent Act 1970 in following ways. So number one क्या है? How the agreements of TRIP goes against in Indian patent in 1970. So what are the points? Pharmaceutical sector. Under the Indian Patent Act 1970, only process patents are granted to chemical drugs and medicines. Thus, a company can legally manufacture once it has the product patent. So, Indian pharmaceutical companies could sell good quality product at low price. However, under TRIPS agreement, product patent will also be granted that will rise the prices of medicines, thus keeping them out of reach, thus keeping them out of reach for the poor people. Fortunately, most of drug manufactured in India are off patent and will be less affected. The next है agriculture. Since the agreement of TRIPS extended to agriculture as well, it will have considerable implications in agriculture. The MNG, with their huge financial resources, multinational group with their huge financial resources, may also take over seed productions and will eventually control food production. Since a large majority of Indian population depends on agriculture for their livelihood, these development will have serious consequences. Okay. Now, microorganisms under TRIPS agreement, patenting has been extended to microorganisms as well. These mills largely benefit MNCs and not developing like in India. So इंडियन कहा देखा जा रहा है कि फार्मास्यूटिकल सेक्टर में और एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर में जो रेगुलेशंस था दैट इज स्ट्रिप ट्रेड रिलेटेड एक्सेप्ट एंड इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी, ये मैक्सिमम जो है वो इंडिया के अगेंस्ट में चला गया था. ओके. फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनीज के में चला गया था और एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर्स में ये चला गया था. ओके. नेक्स्ट आ जाते हैं ट्रिम्स. ट्रेड रिलेटेड इन्वेस्टमेंट मेजर. ट्रिम्स का फुल फॉर्म है ट्रेड रिलेटेड इन्वेस्टमेंट मेजर्स. So the agreement of TRIMS also favors developing nations as there are no rules in the agreement of formulate international rules for controlling business practices of foreign investors. Also, complying with the terms agreement will contradict our objective of self-reliant growth based on locally available technology and resources. So this agreement, trade related agreements, also favor developing nations, and there are no rules in the agreement to formulate international rule for controlling business practices of foreign investors. So when Trim used their agreements, or when Trim agreements been introduced, then the favorable developing nations are benefited of this measure, measures. Okay, why? Because there is no rules in the country, or there is no such rule in the agreement where the international rules for controlling business practices of foreign investors, they had not prepared any rule on this foreign investor. And that is why the trade agreement will contradict Indian objectives of growth based on basically on technology and resources. तो इससे इसका सबसे ज्यादा जो यूटिलाइजेशन हुआ है वो ट्रेड बिजनेस में किया गया था, फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स ने इसको सबसे ज्यादा यूटिलाइज किया गया था, और इंडिया में टेक्नोलॉजी और एग्रीकल्चर एंड रिसोर्सेस का भी सबसे ज्यादा यूटिलाइजेशन इस ट्रेड रिलेटेड इन्वेस्टमेंट मेजर के माध्यम से हुआ था. Now what is GATS? GATS. GATS का मतलब होता है General Agreement on Trade in Services. General Agreement on Trade in Services. So the agreement on GATS will also favor the developed nations more. Thus, the rapidly growing services sector in India will now have to compete with the giant foreign firms. Moreover, since foreign firms are allowed to remit their profit, dividends, and loyalties to their patent company, it will cause foreign exchange burden for India. Trade and non-tariff barriers. Reduction of trade and non-trade barriers has adversely affected the exports of various developing nations. Various Indian products have been hit by non-tariff barriers. These include textile, marine product, floricultures, pharmaceutical, basmati rice, carpets, leather goods, etc. इन सब चीजों में क्या हुआ था, जनरल ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट सर्विस का फेवरेबल की वजह से ये जो है ये रिडक्ट हो गया, रिडक्शंस किया गया था ऑफ ट्रेड ऑफ नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर्स. ठीक है, और जिसकी वजह से ये जो अफेक्टेड हुआ था डेवलपिंग नेशंस में, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ कुछ डेवलपिंग नेशंस में ही अफेक्टेड नहीं हुआ था, मैक्सिमम प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर भी इसका, इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर इसका इम्पैक्ट हुआ था. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कारपेट, लेदर गुड, बासमती राइस, फार्मास्यूटिकल, फ्लोरिकल्चर्स प्रोडक्ट एंड मेनी मोर. ठीक है, एंड मेनी मोर. Now comes to the next, here we comes to the end of unit 4. Next है industrial ecology and recycling industry. In industrial ecology and recycling industry. The industrial ecology is you can say, a challenging discipline for scientists, engineers, and policymakers. Often termed the science of sustainability, the contemporary origins of industrial ecology are associated with an article titled Strategies for Manufacturing, written by Frock and Galpos. Okay, तो यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा हिस्टोरिक बता रहा है, इंडस्ट्रियल इकोलॉजी का हिस्ट्री बता रहा है. Okay, so however, historically, indirect references to the concept of industrial ecology dated back to the early 1970s. The multidisciplinary nature of the ecology, industrial ecology, make it difficult to provide a consistent and universally accepted definition. But the following statement captures the essence of the topic. Industrial ecology is the mean by which humanity can deliberately and rationally approach and maintain sustainability, giving continued economic cultures and technological evolution. The concept require that an industrial ecosystem be viewed not in isolation from its surrounding system but in concert with them. It is a system view in which one helps to optimize the total material cycle from virgin material to finished material, to component to product to obsolete product, and to ultimate disposal. Factors to be optimized and resources, energy and capital. ठीक है, तो यहाँ इंडस्ट्रियल इकोलॉजी का थोड़ा सा ठीक ठाक नहीं दिया गया है. यहाँ बहुत सारा और कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन मिसिंग है. लेट चेक दिस वन. Industrial ecology is an approach that applies the ecosystem metaphor and model to suggest that industrial system should be restructured in order to make them compatible in the way natural ecosystem function. Okay, this is the, I think this may be the definition of the industrial ecosystem or industrial ecology. In this approach, corporations should optimize the consumption of energy and materials, minimize with waste generation, and use the effluent of one process and the raw material for another process. The existing industrial system are seen as being antithetical to nature in that they are linear throughput, whereas in nature there is round put as loops are closed. Terms such as round put, closing the loop, and industrial symbiosis are used to distinguish industrial ecology from existing throughput system of industry that are materially open and rely on the renewable. This approach can be used by some leading environment. Okay, some the industrial ecology, the answers are not suitable been given over here. Okay, I read the entire industrial recycle industry, but I find no such important part or no such important things have been mentioned here. Not clear in it. No point is clear here. Okay. Okay, the same thing repeated again in this particular line also. The industrial system is an analogous to natural ecosystem where there is no waste. Okay, yes, that may be the correct. That ecosystem means industrial ecology or ecosystem means where there should not, we shouldn't use any waste, or the industrial organization shouldn't use any waste. This approach have been somewhat influential in the engineering, chemistry, and other scientific technology. Now, what is recycling? The process of recovering and reusing the waste product is called recycling. So, from the definition, it is clear to you the recovering. Okay, recovering, uh, reusing the waste product is called recycling. They are used. The recycling can be used from household use, manufactural, agricultural, and business, and thereby reducing their burden on the environment. During World War One and World War Two, shortages of essential material lead to led to collection drives from silk, rubber, and commodities. In recent years, the environmental benefit of recycling have become a major component of waste management programs. The next one is waste disposal and recycling. Waste disposal and recycling. This one is 2.35, waste disposal and recycling. Okay, this one with the following points are being also mentioned over here. Why the ISO companies should use, what is the influence of growing market. So tomorrow or in the next class, tomorrow or in the next class, we will going to discuss waste disposal and recycling. That is 2.35.1. Okay, that's is all of it today's class. Thank you.